Shine your light, shine, shine, shine your light, shine, shine, shine your light.
Hello, I'm Nancy Smith Maddox in Little Rock, Arkansas, and I'm coming today broadcasting from WYTV7 in Charlotte, North Carolina on Shine Your Light Radio Ministry. And I'm so excited today. We have a fantastic person we're going to interview. But first, I'd like to say that WYTV7 is a nonprofit, and I want to share with you what we use our donations for is to promote our broadcasts. We have several broadcasters that make broadcasts, so any amount of donation, $5 goes a long ways to us promoting this internationally. Our shows do go internationally. We have people from all over the world watching our shows, so we're very excited about that. So let me introduce my guest today. My guest is Miss Joyce Gerald. She is from South Carolina. She's an awesome child of God, a published author, a 30-year educator, and the name of her book is You Are Not the Only One, and she was born in Jamaica. So without further ado, we're going to move right into the interview. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Miss Gerald.
Oh, hello, Nancy. It's a pleasure to be here. As you stated, I was born in Jamaica, but actually brought up in London in the UK. And we lived there, got married there, had our first child there. And then we moved to Toronto for about 4 years. My then husband was interested in, we met someone at a church retreat actually, who said, oh, you need to come to Toronto. And I thought, oh, I'm not moving. But we did. And we served in the church in Toronto for several years. And then my mother became ill. And we moved to New York in 1978, simply to be in the United States in case something happened to either her or my stepfather. And in 1984, my stepfather passed, and my mother was alone. So we moved to South Carolina in 1986. And I got a degree in Brooklyn College, became a member of the staff at Brooklyn College, taught in the School of Education in the lab school at Brooklyn College. It was one of my most precious experiences, because it exposed me to every religion that possibly could exist and people from all over the world. It was a very cosmopolitan campus. I worked there, and I am sure that the Lord placed me in that venue to give me the experiences that I needed to be successful in education, also in ministry, because he took this introvert and exposed her to people that she never would have been exposed to.
Wow, well, that's exciting because, we do have many, many thousands of religions around the world. Yes. And you know what? I, for one, am just happy that people are faithful and believe in a power higher than us. And if it's God, that makes it even better. I want to talk a little bit about the book before we move on into other things. You wrote a devotional book called You Are Not the Only One. So I want to talk a little bit about that today. What precipitated the name of your book, Miss Gerald?
The book was actually named after the blog that we started in 2009. We were talking to people through this game and venue that we had decided that we would use to reach out to people, build relationships, and then share Jesus with them. This started in December 2009. We went from the four friends who are Christians, in 3 days to 5,000 members on the Facebook page. And we used the game, which was an Easter egg hunt game, how appropriate, to reach out to people, to teach them how to play the game, and then let them know that we were here for prayer, advice, guidance, discipleship. We started to talk to all sorts of people in every walk of life, and we realized that there were many people out there who were being abused, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, male and female. And as we talked to them, I would write a devotional that went along with their experiences and posted the devotional on the blog. And each devotional actually has a worship song at the end of the devotional. And of course, we use scripture.
Oh my goodness, I love that.
And so this book came from the blog postings, but when you're writing a book, it's completely different from the venue and the style that you would use in a blog. And the book came about in 2014. I was telling you, the person who was there before, that I became very ill in the fall of 2013. I have fibromyalgia, and I had a very bad episode of it. I was in the hospital. When I came out, I couldn't drive, I couldn't comb my hair, I couldn't do anything for myself. My children picked me up and took me to Atlanta with them, and the Lord said, write the book. And I thought, I can barely type, how am I going to write the book? And at the same time, he said, go to seminary. You have the background, now all you need is the degree. And I thought, Lord, this is insane. I can still barely type. How am I going to write a book? And how am I going to keep up with my work in seminary? Well, while in seminary, somehow or the other, in spite of the fact that my hands hurt so badly that I could barely type most of the time, the Lord provided me with the strength to rewrite the devotionals in a format that would be acceptable to a publisher. A friend helped to provide the financing to publish the book, and Westbow Press published that book in 2015, I believe it was, while I was still in seminary. I graduated last year from seminary with distinction with a master's in Christian ministry and a focus in pastoral counseling. And that's
Well, it really intrigues me. I've got a lot more questions now to ask now that I know all of that. But the book, I love the fact that you took real life, real talk, and wrote a devotion after you helped someone, and also that it's got a song at the end. I love that. I think that's fantastic. I think that's what people really want to hear. They want to hear real talk that's about real situations, because they all are having the same situations, no matter. And if they read the book, they'll hit right on something that really pertains specifically to them. So that's fantastic. So I always like to ask, what has God done for you? But I think you just described to me what God did for you. He helped you through fibromyalgia and allowed you to write this book and get ready. So I think that's a whole nother interview, and I would like to do that sometime with you, Miss Gerald. I'd like to talk about fibromyalgia and find out exactly what it is, what it means, how we can help other people understand it, because it really is an understood condition.
You're correct. Even the doctors at the time that I was diagnosed didn't understand it.
Yes, ma'am. And I just feel sorry for people that have it, because no one, they all think it's an imaginary thing and that it's not real and all that. You hear all the horror stories about it. I would like to do one interview about that specifically one time in the future if we could.
That would be wonderful.
Knowledge of it, and you've already shared all that, and you overcame it in order to do a book, which is magnificent. So why did you, I think you've already explained to me too why you wrote the devotional. It makes sense to me why you would do that, but I think it may have been really good therapy for you, was it?
I believe that it was actually therapeutic, in that I was at a place in my life where I thought, I'm not sure where I'm going next. So, and God, where are you taking me? And how am I going to get there when I no longer have the skills that I had previously? And he said, my strength is enough. You did what I asked you to do. I got you through that. I can get you through this. And each devotional is an example of something that someone went through. Yeah, betrayal, neglect, abandonment, as I said before, abuse. And sometimes it happens even within church, as in the Big C church. And that's when it becomes extremely difficult, because then you have to bolster that person's faith and belief in the big G God, rather than the little person who hurt them, who thought they were little G God. And that becomes a challenge.
Yes, absolutely. That's so interesting, and because it can come in all forms of lots of things that all kind of problems that people or issues that people are dealing with. So I noticed that you have a 501c3 too. How long has your 501c3 been in existence, Ms. Gerald?
Not very long, actually. We weren't sure what direction to take as far as the ministry was concerned. When one of our partners died in 2012, I continued to write the blog. The book came out, it's been published, and people are buying the ebook because it's the cheapest way of getting the message across, and that's fine with me. I didn't expect to become a millionaire. I just wanted to get the stories out there and share the gospel. And again, being the introvert that I am, it was the best way for me to do it. But the venue works as far as getting the message out to people. People are in all various walks of life, and they think that they're the only ones who are experiencing the kind of life challenges they're going through. And sometimes it's not that no one cares, it's that people don't give them an opportunity to speak, and they don't listen intentionally. When you listen intentionally to what someone else is going through, it changes the picture altogether. When you put yourself in their position, then it changes the scenario. And as I said, I went to seminary, and when I came out of seminary, I decided, okay, it's time for us to go full-fledged and become a 501c3, because the ministry was not a ministry in the true sense of the ministry. And I wanted people to be able to know that whatever they donate to the ministry, it's tax deductible. I'm not a pastor of a church. I'm a member of Freedom Life Church in Bluffton, South Carolina. My pastor is Ken Cox and his wife, Patrice Cox, and they're absolutely amazing pastors. I don't believe in being called to be a pastor, but you have to have those same skills to do pastoral counseling.
That is exactly right. I know I certainly am not a minister and not a pastor, but I feel like I have a ministry. I feel like my Shine Your Light is my ministry. I help people. I give them a chance to shine their light, and I give them an opportunity to let the world hear what they've been through, what they're going through, and what they're doing. And it brings me very much pleasure to be able to do that. So I understand how you feel about that. Although you've been to seminary and you could be a pastor, it's simply not your calling. So, we have to go where God leads us to do and do what God has given us the skills to do. So, what is the name of your 501c3? Is it You Are Not the Only One Ministry?
You're Not the Only One Ministries and Consulting Services. Yeah, so we provide services in pre- and post-marital counseling. I am a SYMBIS and Prepare and Enrich marital counselor. I'm certified to be a facilitator in that. I can do it one-on-one, or I can do a marriage workshop in a church, which could last 1 day, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, doesn't matter. Or I do small group Bible studies with my book. I'm encouraging people to use that as a means for individuals to share in a private setting their own experiences, and for them to understand that they are not the only one who's been abused. They're not the only one who's been harassed on their job. They're not the only one who's lost their job because they had a boss who was just too intense. I don't like to call people names. When you don't understand what your employees are going through, it is extremely difficult for you to meet their emotional needs. People who are in emotional crisis are not excellent employees because they're concerned about what will happen next. How will I function today? What's the next shoe that's going to drop? So in terms of counseling with people, whether they are the employer or employee, my goal is to open that bridge or drawbridge that's currently closed, so the ship of relationship can pass through the drawbridge, and so we can cement relationships between people. And we're a brand spanking new 501c3. We got our document maybe 2 months ago. We applied for it. in December of 2017. And one of the pastors from my church helped me to apply, actually. And we thought, oh, it will take forever because everyone always says it takes forever, but it didn't. It was here in January. And I thought, oh, Lord, I really do have to do something now.
Now you've got a whole other plan you got to build, but it sounds like you're really on track. And I want to repeat what you just said, because I think it's pretty profound that with your ministry, you're not the only one ministry, which is going to have a backbone of your book. You're not the only one, which is a devotional book. You're going to be able to open drawbridges so the ship of relationships can pass through. I think that's wonderful. I mean, I just think that's so interesting. I haven't ever heard it put that way. So I really think you're on to something, and I'm praying that people will love to watch this interview and hear what you have to say and get in touch with you if they have any type of problem. And it's not just a relationship problem. It could be anything. So I really like that. So would you like to elaborate on that just a little bit more?
Whether it's a work environment or whether it's a church environment or whether it's a marital environment or brother or sister, relationships take work. Mm-hmm. Okay, and in terms of the educational consulting part of our business, because I am a past educator and I wrote curriculum, and teachers have an extremely difficult time sometimes navigating the changes that are going on with children. Relationship again, navigating how to meet the state and federal guidelines, relationships again, in terms of what do I say to my principal to help them to understand that this child that's sitting in my classroom who's maybe reading 2 or 3 grade levels below grade level, their needs also need to be met. But as a teacher, I have needs that need to be met too. So in terms of my educational leadership degree, I can facilitate that bridge between the teacher who feels lost and the administrator who may have forgotten what it felt like to be a classroom teacher with 25 to 28 children in their classroom at various levels of student achievement and ability.
Yes, ma'am. My sister-in-law, she is in a small town here in Arkansas called Conway, Arkansas, and she's been a 3rd grade teacher at the same school for 30 years. She says, Nancy, they've tried so many times. She has her master's degree, tried so many times to get me in administration, but I just can't leave it. I don't want to be in administration. I want to be with the students, with the teachers. I mean, with the students and helping the students. But it really creates a very kind and gentle person that's like that. And what bears to mind right now is the issues that we're having right now. I mean, with this shooting in Miami and Broward County, the teachers were beside themselves. They really didn't know what to do. They knew, I mean, they had training and they knew what to do, but you're almost helpless in a situation like that. So a little bit more pre-training and counseling on just what teachers, how they address this, how they address their students, how they watch their students, how they learn their students, because they're all learning the personalities and the issues of their students. So I think that's really a great thing that you're going to do there. But I think the timing is really, really perfect. It could really go a long way with just really, and I don't know how you do it, but I think you should make a proposal up to send to the state, and then it can go to all the states and just try to relay what you just said about teachers, because you're head of 30-year educator. So is that kind of what you're talking about? Do you think the timing is perfect for that?
I believe it is, because children today are not the same as children when I first entered education in 1983. That's when I first graduated. The stressors that are in their own lives, again, they think that they're the only child who's being bullied. They think that they're the only child in the class who doesn't comprehend what the teacher is saying. They think that they're the only one in the school who understands their specific scenario. In every case where we've had a school shooting, had folks been paying attention to that child and what was going on in terms of relationship building, it might have been avoided. If teachers knew how to look out for the child whose head is always down, who rarely ever speaks in the class, who looks scared all the time, Those are the kinds of signs that we need to look for in children so they don't get to the point where they literally attempt to commit suicide by killing their peers because they want it to end. Suicide is the last ditch effort of ending the emotional torment that a person is going through. It's the type of blackness that the enemy uses to engulf a person's soul. And it's not something that we should say, well, they should have known better. Well, you've not been down that road. So you don't know how dark that tunnel is when there isn't even a single flame at the end of the tunnel. Blackness is blackness. And children experience that. Adults experience it. When you're a teenager, it's even worse.
Wow. That really is, that's just so interesting to me. And the timing just seems so perfect, and we keep having these disasters in our schools. I mean, our children are afraid to go to school. And, I keep thinking to myself, when I was in school, it was the best time of my life. I had a ball. I was footloose, fancy free, and just had a great time. I can't even imagine. I mean, I never missed school. Straight A student all the way through school, never missed school. And if my mom and dad tried to take me out to do something, I was like, no, I have to do. I have some important things I have to do. So, but it's not like that anymore. It really isn't. And I worry about my own grandchildren and being bullied and things like that. And I'm always harping to them. They're like, nay, it's just not like that anymore. And I'm like, well yes, it is. But, you can always come to someone and talk about it. Because, I mean, it's scary. They're scared.
Yes, it's important. It's very important for children to know that there will be at least one person who will just listen. Mm-hmm. In every relationship, the biggest gap that occurs is that when someone is talking to you, you are thinking about a solution. Many times people don't need a solution. They just need an ear. They just need to be validated. They just need to know that their concern is valid, it's real, and that someone is acknowledging that their concern actually exists and that they're not the only one. At some point or the other, they will come to understand that God has a solution for their problem. It already exists. And if they're not a believer, then the bridge is a little more challenging because they have to, first of all, understand that they don't exist in this life alone, that there is, as you said, a higher power. For us, it's God our Father. And that Christ opened that veil, which meant he opened the entire universe to every single person. We have access to the one who created the cells in our body, who sustains the sun in the sky, who makes the 24-hour cycle of life occur for each person every day when they open their eyes.
Wow. I just think that's so beautiful and so wonderful. What other nonprofit what other things does the nonprofit ministry do for the faith-based community and the community in general?
Every Wednesday and Saturday, I serve at a local food pantry. It's called the Agape Family Life Center Food Pantry in my little town of Hardeeville. And I serve, yes, I have fibromyalgia. I still have it. It's not a curable disease. I serve because the need is so great. Sometimes the folks come there and we don't have a lot of food, and so we're able to share what God has provided. But through that venue, we're also able to share his love. Just a smile and saying hi to someone. Most of the people who come through the food pantry are senior citizens. Many of them, their children do not live near them anymore. Some of them are raising their grandchildren. They're on limited incomes. They can't afford healthy foods. And so this wonderful opportunity came about for me to participate in the volunteer program at the food pantry. It means getting up at dark 30. It means coming home really late some afternoons, and I actually deliver food to 7 or 8 people who cannot get to the food pantry at all. So at the end of the day, when I literally crawl onto my sofa, I am exhausted and in so much pain. But then the Lord said, but Joyce, you bless someone today. And if it's just one person, then I have done what he's called me to do. That is
that's how we are at WYTV7. That's our mantra too. If we reach one, then we've done our job. And
Yes.
we're reaching thousands of people with WYTV7 and their nonprofit and the broadcasting that we're doing. So it's just awesome how people get put together and their paths cross, and that we're all doing this. So that's fantastic. Are there other things that you're doing?
The food pantry is a main volunteer activity that I do. I am going to be, I have been teaching computer skills. I don't want to use the word techie because I've been doing this since my first computer was the size of most people's bedrooms. So that's when I worked for the city of New York. So I've been doing computing for quite some time. And many of our senior citizens have smartphones, but they don't know how to use them. So I've contacted the local library, which is brand spanking new in our area. And I'm working with the branch manager of the library to set up some training for our seniors. And anyone who wants to come are welcome to how to secure your smartphone so that should you lose it, your life isn't gone, because most of our information is on our smartphone. How to use your smartphone, especially if you don't have a computer or any type of device like an iPad or a notebook or a laptop, you can still access social media. Many of our seniors are locked into their homes and all they have is their telephone. And they need to know that there's a venue out there where they could actually talk to other people, whether they are Christians or not, and that they don't have to feel that they're all alone, that they are not the one who has only a phone, that they're not the only one who's 79 years old with a, what is it the gentleman said, a dodgy hip that needs to be replaced, but he's not sure he wants to do it. Just life. They're not the only one going through life. Today,
well, I like that idea because, you know, I'm I'm older myself, but I live and die by my computer and my phone. But I was talking to my husband. He's homebound. He's had several strokes, so he really doesn't get out a whole lot. But he really enjoys his phone. You know, he gets on the social media accounts, and I was telling him last night that I found this beautiful Facebook account that's called Everyday Boxers. We had boxers all our life. Yesterday was our 46th wedding anniversary, and we had boxers all throughout that time. So I told him, I said, you know, since you're here looking at Facebook and you're looking at, you know, and if you get bored, you might want to look at this page. So we brought it up this morning, and he was sitting there scrolling through it as I left this morning. He absolutely loves it because it just shows, you know, people's real life dogs, their boxers, and what they do, and you can relate if you've ever had a boxer. Their personalities are all alike, and they do the strangest things. But it's kind of I left today. So I think that's really an important thing for you to do, because they all have the phones. And they don't realize that they can take a video and talk to their grandparent, their grandchildren, or anything. And then I have another funny story that I did. My mother is in Florida. She has been in rehab for quite some time. And I had a friend in Florida go over there and take her iPad and turn the Zoom link on, and my mother and I had a conversation just like you and I are having now. And I saved that because that'll be a memory that I'll cherish, you know, the rest of my life. But my mother was just touching the screen and kissing the screen. So, you know, and she's what, 80 years old. So I mean, people, they don't know how to do this, but if they learn how, they love it. So
it opens the world to them. It gives them access, especially if they have grandchildren. It gives them access to their grandchildren, whom they may or may not see that frequently. And it gives them a venue where they can talk to others. It gives them a venue where they can see what's happening in the world, rather than, especially if they're shut in their own little world. And if you can't drive and you're non-ambulatory, You feel as if you're all alone, literally all alone. So social media opens up all sorts of possibilities. And in this day and age, many people cannot even afford a television, or cable. Or my next workshop is actually going to be how to access local TV without having to have cable. So you can get an air antenna, and that will give them something that they can look at.
Really, because they don't really have the money to have all those fancy,
Exactly. Exactly.
satellite and all that. Well, I tell you, we're going to have to wrap it up. We're running out of time, but you are a pleasure. You have been a joy, and you have shared so much information with us, and you'll be sharing it with the world when we post this broadcast. I'm so excited for you. I wish you nothing but the best. You're such a beautiful woman, entrepreneur. I love that. And one last question that I have is, what do you believe about God?
He is the creator and sustainer of the universe. He is the protector of Joyce. He's the provider of Joyce. He watches over me, I know, every day, every single day. The ministry's motto is love God, love people, serve both. And I actually found a church, my church, that says grow closer to God and learn to love people better. Why? Because it makes your heart a heart of flesh rather than a heart of stone.
Wow, it's magnificent. That's beautiful. And again, Miss Gerald, I thank you so much for the interview. And I will let you know as things progress and when it's going to air. So we'll start really working all that social media to get this out there for people to hear about you and hear about your ministry as well as your book. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Nancy. It's a pleasure. You have a wonderful afternoon.
Shine, shine.
Bye-bye.
In your light. Shine, shine. Shine your light. Shine, shine. Shine your light. Shine, shine. Shine.